Saturday, December 13th, 2025, New York City. 50,000 people in Santa suits stumbled through Manhattan, drunk, singing, and completely unaware that 3 alien warships were watching from orbit, recording every red suit as a uniform. The invasion fleet had a plan. It did not survive contact with SantaCon. Stick around because this journey is about to get very, very strange. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment telling me where you'd hide if aliens landed on your city. Now, let's go back to where it all started. The invasion fleet arrived over New York at 6 in the morning, when the sky was still the color of wet concrete, and most of the city was asleep, hungover, or both. Commander Threx Vondar of the Korathi Dominion had studied Earth for 11 cycles before this mission. He had watched its television broadcasts, its news channels, its military parades. He believed with total confidence that he understood the planet's chain of command. He was wrong, but nobody had told him yet. Threx stood on the bridge of the flagship Devourer's Silence, 4 eyes narrowed at the city below. Beside him stood his second-in-command, a nervous officer named Drawl, who had a habit of clearing his throat before saying anything Threx did not want to hear. "Commander," Drawl said, clearing his throat, "our scanners are picking up something unusual. Define unusual. Thousands of humans, all wearing identical red and white uniforms. Converging on a single location, some carrying weapons disguised as beverage containers." Threx leaned forward. On the main display, the image sharpened. Streets packed shoulder to shoulder with men and women dressed head to toe in crimson, trimmed in white fur, some wearing fake beards, some carrying blow-up candy canes. One man inexplicably dressed as a reindeer riding on another man's shoulders. "A uniform," Threx said slowly. "Coordinated, disciplined. This is not civilian clothing. This is a military formation." Drawl hesitated. "Commander, with respect, the movement pattern is erratic." "They are not marching, they appear to be falling into each other." "Battle fatigue," Threx said, "or a new form of combat drift designed to confuse enemy targeting systems. Either way, this confirms it. Earth's true defense force is not the scattered police vehicles or the disorganized traffic below. It is this." He pointed at the screen, where a man in a Santa hat was attempting to climb into a trash can for reasons no scanner could explain. "Their command must be centered in the largest concentration," Threx continued. "That location there, a structure surrounded by flashing lights and enormous crowds." Drawl checked the readout. "That is listed in our data as Times Square." "Then Times Square is their capital," Threx said. "We strike the head and the body falls." Down on the street level, 26-year-old bartender Danny Coletti had no idea he was standing inside a war room. He was standing inside a crowd of SantaCons outside a bar on 8th Avenue, holding a plastic cup of spiked eggnog, trying to convince his coworker Ashley Reyes that his Santa costume was, in fact, historically accurate. "There is no version of Santa Claus that wears sunglasses," Ashley said. "They're as if Santa's been up since 4 a.m. dealing with reindeer HR complaints," Danny said. That was the moment the sky lit up green, not lightning, not fireworks. A long, deliberate streak of emerald light that cut across the clouds and made every phone camera in the crowd swing upward at once. For 1 full second, nobody moved. Then somebody in an elf costume near the corner said the sentence that would define the entire day. "Yo, is that a UFO?" Nobody believed him. Not because it wasn't obviously true, but because it was SantaCon, and nothing that happened on SantaCon was ever taken seriously by the people standing in the middle of it. The ship descended slowly over Times Square, a shape too large and too smooth to be man-made, blotting out the enormous digital billboards behind it. A ripple of nervous laughter went through the crowd, followed by silence, followed by the unmistakable sound of 1,000 people simultaneously deciding this was either the greatest marketing stunt in advertising history or the end of the world. A voice boomed down from the ship, translated crudely through a device that made every word sound like it was being spoken underwater through a kazoo. "Attention, defenders of Earth. We recognize your uniform. We come to negotiate terms." Danny lowered his eggnog. "Did that spaceship just call us defenders of Earth?" Ashley grabbed his arm. "Danny, I think it thinks we're the army. We're dressed as Santa. I know, there are 40 of us in Rudolph noses. I know, Danny, somewhere behind them. A man wearing a full inflatable Santa suit, unable to see anything through the tiny mesh eye holes, wandered directly toward the ship's landing zone, arms out for balance, looking for all the world like he was either surrendering or challenging the aliens to a wrestling match. The crowd did not scatter. That was the strangest part. 50,000 drunk, costumed New Yorkers looked up at an alien warship hovering over Times Square, and instead of running, most of them started filming. One woman shouted, "Is this part of the bar crawl?" Another yelled, "Somebody get the guy from the naked cowboy, he'll know what to do," and high above them. Commander Threx watched the crowd hold its ground, watched them raise strange, glowing rectangles toward his ship instead of fleeing, and felt something he had not felt in 11 cycles of conquest. "Respect, they are not afraid of us," he said quietly. "Drawl, record this. Earth soldiers do not break formation under an approaching warship. This is the most disciplined civilian population we have ever encountered." Drawl looked at the screen, at a man doing a shot off another man's Santa hat, while the ship descended behind him, and said nothing at all. The ship touched down in the middle of Times Square with a low mechanical groan, crushing a hot dog cart that thankfully had already closed for the season. Steam hissed from its underside. A ramp extended, and out walked 6 Korathi soldiers in black battle armor, rifles raised, boots striking the pavement in perfect synchronized rhythm. For 3 full seconds, nobody in the crowd screamed. They cheered. "That is the best costume I have seen all day," someone shouted from the crowd, and a dozen phones surged forward to get closer footage. Threx stepped down the ramp last, cloaked in ceremonial silver, flanked by 2 guards. He raised a hand, expecting silence, expecting the crowd to part in fear the way conquered populations always did. Instead, a man in an inflatable Santa suit bounced directly into him. "Sorry, man, can't see a thing in this," the man said cheerfully, bouncing off Threx's armor like a beach ball, and continued on his way without a single glance back. Threx stood frozen. Drawl behind him spoke carefully into his communicator. "Command, be advised, their soldiers appear to use inflatable armor. It absorbs impact and does not require complex targeting to survive contact." "Fascinating," Threx muttered, watching the man bounce off 2 more people and vanish into the crowd. "A defense mechanism disguised as clumsiness. This species is more advanced than our intelligence suggested." He raised his voice, letting the translator do its work. "People of Earth's army. We are the Korathi Dominion. We have come to discuss the terms of your surrender." A woman near the front, dressed as a sexy elf, which is to say, an elf costume that had been aggressively shortened, cupped her hands around her mouth. "Free shots if you say that again, but louder," the crowd roared with laughter and approval. Somebody started a chant. It was not a chant of fear. It was a chant of chug, 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 directed confusingly at the alien commander. Threx turned to Drawl. "Why are they chanting a demand for me to consume liquid? I believe it is a challenge, Commander, a test of endurance. Possibly a ritual to determine leadership worthiness among their ranks." Threx considered this. On Korathi, leadership was earned through trials of pain, endurance, and sacrifice. If Earth's warriors tested their commanders through liquid consumption rituals in the middle of their capital, in full view of the enemy, without fear, without hesitation, then perhaps this species had built an entire culture around psychological warfare disguised as celebration. "Bring me their beverage," Threx said. "I will not be seen as weaker than their army." This is how, 4 minutes after landing an alien warship in the middle of Times Square with the explicit intention of conquering planet Earth, Commander Threx Vondar found himself accepting a plastic cup of spiked eggnog from a stranger dressed as Frosty the Snowman, and drinking it in one motion while 50,000 people cheered. He did not know what alcohol was. His biology had never encountered it. What happened next was not part of any invasion protocol ever written by the Korathi Dominion. Threx swayed. The crowd cheered louder. Drawl's voice cracked with alarm through his communicator. "Command, the commander appears to be malfunctioning." "I am not malfunctioning," Threx said, his words suddenly looser, his 4 eyes drifting slightly out of alignment. "I am bonding with Earth's military leadership through their sacred ritual. This is diplomacy, Drawl. Observe and learn. Somewhere in the crowd, Danny turned to Ashley, both of them recording on their phones. Both of them absolutely certain they were witnessing either an elaborate viral marketing stunt or the single strangest night of their lives. "Ashley," Danny whispered, "I think we just got the alien invasion drunk." "I think," Ashley said slowly, "he thinks this is a job interview." Above them, more ships began to descend. Drawn by Threx's transmission back to the fleet, a transmission that had been garbled by the eggnog into something that translated roughly as, "Send reinforcements. Earth's army is powerful. Also, bring more of the yellow drink." 2 more warships lowered into Herald Square and Bryant Park, directly into 2 more separate SantaCon meeting points, where thousands more revelers were gathered completely unaware that the invasion of their planet was currently being derailed by a man in a foam reindeer costume, attempting to teach an alien soldier how to do the cha-cha slide. It was, by every metric Commander Threx could measure, going extremely well. It was not going well at all. 6 blocks away, NYPD Sergeant Frank Delacroix sat in his patrol car outside a coffee shop on 42nd Street, watching his radio light up with calls that made absolutely no sense. "Copy, say again," Frank said into the mic, one hand still holding a bagel he had not gotten to eat. "You're telling me there's a spaceship parked on top of a hot dog cart in Times Square?" "Affirmative, Sarge," the dispatcher said. "Multiple units on scene report a large aircraft, unknown origin, and hostile figures in black armor currently attempting to learn a dance called the cha-cha slide." Frank set his bagel down slowly. He had been on the force for 22 years. He had seen riots, blackouts, a blizzard that shut down the whole city for a week, and every possible variation of SantaCon chaos, including the year someone rode a horse into a subway station. Nothing had prepared him for this. "Get me Captain Reyes," he said. "And somebody call the National Guard before somebody's uncle tries to fight it for a selfie." Captain Mark Reyes arrived at the precinct 20 minutes later, still in his coat, staring at the live news feed on the wall monitor, where a local reporter named Julie Chandler stood at a safe distance from Times Square, microphone shaking slightly in her hand. "What we're seeing behind me," Julie said, "can only be described as, well, I genuinely do not have the words. There appears to be an alien aircraft that has landed in the middle of SantaCon, and the, occupants appear to be dancing." Behind her, on the screen, Threx was attempting the cha-cha slide with the coordination of a man discovering gravity for the first time. Arms flailing in 4 directions his body had never designed itself to move in, while a circle of SantaCons cheered him on like he was the guest of honor at the world's strangest office party. Captain Reyes rubbed his eyes. "Somebody explain to me why the alien invasion looks like a bachelorette party." "Sir," said Officer Priya Malhotra, standing near the monitor with a laptop open, "our analysts think the aliens believe SantaCon is some kind of military formation. They think the costumes are uniforms, they think the drinking games are combat rituals. So they think we're, what exactly? Undefeated, sir. Their scanners logged 0 casualties, 0 retreat, and full crowd cohesion under direct confrontation. As far as they're concerned, they just met the single most disciplined army on the planet." Reyes stared at the screen for a long moment, watching a man dressed as an elf attempt to fist bump an alien soldier who clearly did not understand the gesture, and instead grabbed the man's entire arm in confusion. "Get me the mayor's office," Reyes finally said, "and somebody find out who's actually running this thing. If the aliens think Santa's in charge, I want to know who's playing Santa." That answer arrived faster than anyone expected, because at that exact moment, a woman named Carla Whitfield, 44 years old, a bar manager from Queens, and the unofficial, self-appointed queen of SantaCon for the last 6 years running, climbed up onto the base of the red staircase in Times Square wearing a full Mrs. Klaus outfit and a bullhorn she had brought for crowd control, and looked directly at Commander Threx. "All right, big guy," Carla shouted through the bullhorn. "You want to hang out, you gotta follow the rules. Rule 1, no fighting. Rule 2, drink water between rounds. Rule 3, if you throw up, you're out of the crawl." Threx turned to Drawl, swaying slightly, eyes glowing with something between confusion and awe. "Drawl," he said, "I believe I have found their supreme commander." Drawl looked at Carla, at her bullhorn, at her plastic candy cane earrings, and made a decision that would define the rest of his career. "Yes, Commander," he said. "I believe you're right." Above them, unnoticed by everyone on the ground, a fourth ship began its descent, carrying someone far less patient than Threx and far less interested in dancing. General Chorus Vale had not left the command ship in 3 cycles of this campaign, and he had grown deeply tired of waiting for updates that made no tactical sense. When Threx's transmissions arrived describing an enemy defended by ritual drinking, coordinated costuming, and something called the Cha-Cha slide, Chorus assumed his commander had suffered some kind of neurological damage during descent. He was not entirely wrong, though not for the reasons he suspected. Chorus landed his personal shuttle 3 blocks north, near Bryant Park, away from the chaos, intending to assess the situation with clear eyes and immediately restore order. What he found instead was another 2,000 SantaCons, an ice skating rink, a small stage playing holiday music, and in the middle of it all, a Korathi scout team standing in a circle. Being taught how to make a human pyramid by a group of enthusiastic accountants from New Jersey. Chorus raised his weapon and fired a warning shot into the sky. The crowd did not scatter. They screamed with delight, assuming it was fireworks, and someone shouted, "Do it again!" Chorus stood there, weapon still raised, absolutely unable to process a species that cheered louder the more aggressive he became. "This is not a negotiation," he snarled into his communicator, patching directly into Threx's channel. "This is a battlefield, Commander, and you are drunk in the middle of it." Threx, several blocks away, wobbled slightly as he responded. "General, with respect, I believe you are misreading the terrain. These are not civilians. They have absorbed 3 separate strike teams without a single confirmed casualty. Their morale is unbreakable. Their formation never wavers. I recommend we consider a peaceful accord." "A peaceful accord," Chorus repeated flatly, "with an army wearing fake beards. The beards may be ceremonial armor, General. We do not yet understand their material science." Chorus closed the channel jaw tight and turned to his own soldiers. "We are doing this properly," he announced. "Full formation. We advance on their command structure and force a genuine surrender, not a drinking contest." His soldiers marched forward in tight formation toward the heart of Bryant Park, rifles raised. Boots hitting the pavement in disciplined unison, an intimidating wall of black armor cutting through a crowd of Santas, elves, and one increasingly confused man dressed as a giant inflatable menorah who had clearly wandered in from a different, more inclusive party down the block. That was when they hit the zip line. Bryant Park's Winter Village had, that week, installed a temporary aerial obstacle course as a charity fundraiser, a tangle of ropes, zip lines, an inflatable barrier strung up between the trees for kids and drunk adults alike to stumble through for photos. Chorus's soldiers, marching in perfect formation, had no idea it existed until the front line walked directly into a net of bungee cords stretched between 2 lampposts. And the whole formation collapsed into a tangled, thrashing heap of confused alien soldiers and dangling holiday lights. The crowd absolutely lost their minds with joy, certain this was the greatest interactive street performance New York had ever produced. "Best SantaCon ever," someone screamed, filming the entire thing. Chorus, still standing, the only one of his squad not caught in the netting, stared at his tangled soldiers at the laughing crowd. At a small child in a reindeer onesie who walked up and offered one of the trapped soldiers a candy cane, completely unafraid. For the first time since landing on Earth, General Chorus Vale felt something close to fear. Not of weapons, not of armies, of a planet where every possible tactic he understood simply did not apply. He keyed his communicator with a shaking hand. "Fleet Command," he said, "requesting immediate reassessment of Earth's threat designation. Their defenses do not function as expected. Their children offer confectionery to captured soldiers. I do not understand this world." Back near Times Square, Threx heard the transmission and turned to Carla Whitfield, who was currently helping a soldier named Drawl Try on a Santa hat over his helmet. "General Chorus believes we are losing," Threx said. Carla adjusted the hat, stepped back, and grinned. "Tell your buddy the General to relax and grab a drink. Nobody loses SantaCon, honey." You just survive it. By nightfall, the situation had stopped resembling an invasion and started resembling the strangest block party in New York City history, which was saying something for a city that had once let 200,000 people run through the streets for a marathon finish line made of confetti and pure exhaustion. But not everyone had made peace with what was happening. Chorus, humiliated by the netting incident and furious at Threx's growing friendship with the crowd, made one final decision. If Earth's defenders could not be defeated through direct confrontation, he would strike where it would hurt most, the source of their apparent unity. He ordered his remaining soldiers to converge on Rockefeller Center, home to the massive lit Christmas tree that every camera in the crowd kept turning toward like a beacon. Convinced it was the true source of Earth's command network. "Destroy the Tower of Light," Chorus ordered. "Without it, their formation will break." What Chorus did not understand, what no amount of scanning could have told him, was that the tree was not a weapon, a beacon, or a command center. It was just a tree. A very large, very famous, very beloved tree, wrapped in 50,000 lights, guarded not by soldiers but by tourists, ice skaters, a small brass band playing Christmas carols, and one extremely determined NYPD unit under Captain Reyes, who had been quietly positioning barricades all evening, waiting for exactly this kind of escalation. When Chorus's soldiers advanced on the tree, plasma rifles raised, the crowd around the rink did something no Korathi tactical model had ever accounted for. They booed, not screamed, not fled. Booed the exact same way a crowd boos a referee's bad call, loud, unified, and utterly without fear. Because as far as every single person in that crowd was concerned, nobody, alien or otherwise, was allowed to mess with the Rockefeller tree. Captain Reyes stepped forward, hand raised, flanked by a dozen officers, his voice carrying clearly across the plaza. "That's far enough. Weapons down." Chorus hesitated. For the first time all night, he was looking at a formation that was not laughing, not dancing, not offering candy canes. Just calm, controlled, and absolutely unmoving. "Your commander made peace with our forces," Reyes continued. "You want a different outcome, you go through us first, and trust me, we've dealt with worse than you on a Tuesday." It was at that exact moment that Threx arrived. Slightly less unsteady than before, flanked by Carla Whitfield and somehow Danny and Ashley, who had appointed themselves unofficial translators of human customs sometime around hour 6 of the celebration. "General," Threx called out, "stand down. I have concluded our assessment. This world's people cannot be conquered by force. Their unity does not break under threat, it grows. We must reconsider our strategy entirely." Chorus turned, weapon still raised, torn between orders and instinct. "Commander, we came here to take this world. And I am telling you," Threx said, stepping closer, steady now, his voice carrying the weight of genuine realization, "that this world does not surrender. It adapts, it absorbs, it turns invaders into guests. If we fire on that tree, we will not defeat them. We will simply become the villains of their story forever, and I do not believe our dominion needs another world that hates us on principle." For a long moment, nobody moved. The brass band, unaware of the tension unfolding 20 feet away, continued playing a slightly off-key version of a Christmas carol. Then Chorus lowered his weapon. "Fine," he said, jaw tight. "But I am not wearing the hat." Somewhere behind him, Drawl, still wearing his Santa hat over his helmet, said nothing, and simply looked incredibly pleased with himself. By the time the sun rose on Sunday morning, the ships were gone. Not destroyed, not defeated in any traditional sense, but gone, lifted quietly back into the sky sometime around 4 in the morning, after Commander Threx Vondar sat with Captain Reyes, Carla Whitfield, and, of all people, a food cart vendor named Hector Ruiz, and negotiated what would later be remembered in a report buried deep in a federal filing cabinet as the single strangest peace treaty in recorded history. The terms were simple: Earth would not be invaded. In exchange, the Korathi Dominion asked for exactly one thing: an open invitation back for next year's SantaCon, and a formal apology to the man in the inflatable Santa suit that Threx had accidentally knocked over during the cha-cha slide. Nobody in Washington believed the initial reports. Then the footage hit the internet, and within 6 hours, the entire planet knew that New York City had accidentally negotiated first contact through a Christmas pub crawl. Danny Coletti and Ashley Reyes gave, by their own count, at least 14 interviews over the following 2 weeks, each one slightly more exaggerated than the last. Though the core of the story never changed. They had been standing in the crowd when a spaceship landed on a hot dog cart, and by the end of the night, they had taught an alien general how to fist bump. Captain Mark Reyes received a formal commendation, which he mostly used as an excuse to tell the story at every family dinner for the rest of his life, usually ending with the line, "And that, kids, is why you never underestimate a city that already survives Black Friday every single year." Carla Whitfield, for her part, refused every single interview request, on the grounds that SantaCon rules clearly stated that what happens on the crawl stays on the crawl, alien invasion or otherwise. She did, however, quietly keep the Santa hat that Drawl had worn that night, displayed proudly behind the bar she managed in Queens, with a small handwritten sign underneath that read, "Property of Earth's first alien ally. Do not touch." As for Commander Threx Vondar, he returned to his fleet with something no Korathi commander had ever brought home from a failed invasion. A full report recommending diplomatic contact instead of conquest, an entire folder of photographs from the night, and tucked into his personal quarters where General Chorus would never see it. A single plastic candy cane, the first gift anyone from Earth had ever given him. When the Dominion's High Council reviewed the mission, they found themselves facing a planet unlike any other in their records. A world where the population did not flee from invasion, but absorbed it, danced with it, and somehow negotiated a peace treaty through sheer stubborn hospitality. The Council marked Earth's status not as conquered, not as hostile, but as something entirely new in their history, protected not by weapons, by something the Korathi Dominion had never encountered, and if they were honest, had no real defense against: community. Back on the streets of Manhattan, life returned to normal almost immediately, because if there was one thing New York City had always been extremely good at, it was treating the impossible like just another Tuesday. The subway ran late, the bagel shops reopened, and somewhere on 8th Avenue, Danny Coletti hung a small, laminated sign behind his bar that read, "This establishment survived the SantaCon invasion of 2025. Ask your bartender for the story. Tips appreciated. If you made it this far, you already know this planet doesn't go down without throwing a party first." Let me know in the comments where you were the night the sky turned green. And if you enjoyed riding along on this one, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to believe that humanity's greatest weapon might just be showing up, staying calm, and refusing to leave the party early.